Welcome again to everyone. We're so glad to have you with us for this edition of Voices from the Field, National Mission Institutions Offering Shelters of Hope. I am Jessica Tulloch, and I have the privilege of working at the National Office of United Women in Faith as a liaison with our national mission institutions. Today's program focuses on housing. I'm sure many of us tuning in today feel the rising cost of housing and housing vulnerability in general. For individuals and families with extremely low incomes, there was a shortage of over 7 million affordable housing units last year in the United States. Women and children are the fastest growing groups among the homeless population in the US, while 90% of homeless families are headed by single mothers. Throughout the next 55 minutes or so, we'll hear more about the causes of homelessness for women and children and how some of our national mission institutions are responding to this critical need. What are national mission institutions? Well, United Women in Faith's predecessor organizations established social service programs across the United States at the turn of the 20th century in response to the needs of marginalized and neglected communities. Many of these programs survive today as independent, autonomous nonprofit agencies referred to as national mission institutions. United Women in Faith's members play an important role in supporting national mission institutions through their financial gifts to mission, their gifts of time and talent as volunteers, advocates, and as members of the boards of directors. With your financial contributions to United Women in Faith, the National Office supports national mission institutions through grants, technical support and trainings, and networking opportunities. We're so grateful to feature the work of three of our national mission institutions on this edition of Voices from the Field. This is a quarterly virtual educational series featuring programs and initiatives supported by your mission giving and other financial gifts. We'll be joined today by three leaders: Kate Carver, Executive Director of Dumas Wesley Community Center; Tanya Brownlow, Executive Director of Norton Services; and Stacy Ninnis, President and CEO of Neighborhood Services Organization. After their presentations, we'll have a few minutes for question and answers from the audience before closing the formal program. For those who would like, you may stay after the close of the program to join breakout room discussions with one of our three speakers today. I now will pass the mic to Kate Carver, who has served Dumas Wesley Community Center in Mobile, Alabama for the past 12 years. Her outstanding social service leadership garnered her recognition as one of Mobile Bay Magazine's 40 Under 40 in 2015. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so honored to be here and see lots of familiar faces, so I feel like I'm among friends here. Let me start by just sharing a brief introduction about Dumas Wesley, and then we'll go right to an overview of our transitional housing programs. So for those of you who aren't familiar, as you can see, we were founded in 1903. We are celebrating our 120th year of service this year. We were founded by a group just like yourselves, a group of United Methodist women who saw a need in the community to provide childcare services for the men and women that worked in the cotton mills in Mobile, Alabama. And then over the years, we grew to become this full service community center that we are today. We offer over a dozen programs and services, particularly for the working poor and the homeless. We just this year expanded our footprint into our neighboring Baldwin County community, where we opened our second transitional housing program, the Baldwin Family Village. I want to share real quickly before we get into a little bit about our programming, just the importance of your mission giving. So to give you some context, a few years ago, Our transitional housing program was predominantly funded by HUD, federal dollars. And we got to a point a few years ago where our shelter utilization rate, otherwise known as occupancy, dropped from what had been historically 20 years of 100% occupancy to about 30% because of red tape and regulations associated with federal dollars. And so my board and myself made the difficult but necessary decision to walk away from those federal dollars and to look for private dollars and church dollars and mission dollars to bridge that gap. And 4 weeks into our decision to move into independently running our programming, we were back at 100% occupancy. And it was just a good feeling for all of us on staff and on board to know that we were getting back to serving those that were in need. So what that translates to for y'all is your mission giving literally brought women and children off the streets back into our programming. Your support allowed us to keep our doors open and to be efficient and independently running. So I want to say thank you for that. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to our board member who was a big champion of that effort to become independently run. Her name is Betty Fain, and she happens to be not only on our board, but a graduate of our transitional housing program, who really, to be honest with y'all, when we shared the news a few years ago that our occupancy rate had dropped to 30%, she openly wept in our board meeting because nobody wants to run a program that isn't running efficiently, that isn't meeting the need. And so she had been my champion from the very beginning when we decided to start to make an appeal to the public sector, to the private sector, to mission giving, to United Methodist churches to help us bridge that gap. So I just want you to connect the dots with your mission giving and our work and our ability to run independently these days with 100% occupancy. So thank you. Moving on, so what I want to do is give you an overview of our transitional housing programs. You'll see on the screen here, the Sybil Smith Family Village has been around since 1999, and the Baldwin Family Village just opened in May of this year. We serve about 135 individuals annually at the Sybil Smith Village. And then, as you can see, we expect to serve up to 100 individuals at the Baldwin Family Village this year alone. I want to brag on my team. We have an above average success rate, which is measured by HUD. The way that HUD determines a successful move out is somebody who comes into our program homeless and leaves and remains independent for 2 years. And our success rate over the course of our 24 years has averaged between 85 and 90%. To give you some context, the national average, the success rate, according to HUD, is in the 50 percentile category. So we have a recipe that works, and I want to tell you a little bit about that. So for starters, if you'll switch to the next slides, you'll see kind of a little bit of what our layouts look like in a typical apartment. I want you to know that every apartment is outfitted with entirely new supplies. It's a fresh start, a new beginning for our ladies, and many of you, United Methodist women and women of faith, have sponsored apartments to bring new apartment supplies and celebrate birthday parties and send kids to camp. And so you'll see a few of those pictures here as we scroll through. And I just want to say thank you for your support in that capacity. So to give you an overview of our programming and how we get that 90% success rate, our key to our success is built on a hand up, not a handout philosophy. We have a model that is built on accountability, personal responsibility, dignity. Those are the key components to our programming. So for starters, individualized case management. You'll see this on the screen. Our belief is that we take a holistic approach. So, we serve hundreds of individuals each year. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all solution to our programming, right? Because everybody comes into our programs with different needs, different backgrounds, different strengths. And so we really work to have a tailored individual approach to our programming for each of our ladies and their children. For example, talking about accountability and personal responsibility, our program is one that is very rigorous. When you come into our program, within 30 to 60 days, you're expected to be enrolled in school full-time or find employment full-time. We are a drug and alcohol-free program. We do have chores. We do have curfews. So there's stability and structure that is put in place from the very beginning, and that is one of the keys to our success. The second part of our programming you'll see here is mandatory life skills classes. So that really runs the gamut. Subjects ranging from financial education, parenting, healthy you, healthy boundaries. Those are subjects that our participants are required to participate in twice weekly at a minimum, to give them the tools to become independently housed and help them overcome what it was that led them to their homelessness. So we have members of our community, just like you all, who come in and provide those workshops and provide those life skills classes for our ladies. And that is the key to giving these ladies the skills they need to move on into independent housing. And then the last part of our key component in our programming is our savings program. And we have that built into our program where our residents automatically save 15% of their income. So they have a nest egg when they move out to use on deposits, rent, furniture, you name it. And in many cases, the ladies in our care come in without ever having opened a bank account before, and they leave with $1,000, $1,500 to move into their new independent housing. And so it's a really big gift for these ladies to have that nest egg and that security blanket when they move out on their own. And I want to say that, again, back to the subject of accountability and personal responsibility. These are things that are taught for most of our residents, but it's something that we just need to give the opportunity for our residents to see their potential, to have the opportunity to become the best versions of themselves. And a perfect example of that is a lady by the name of Sharon, who came into our program. She was working at Popeyes, living in her car with her two children. And she was fleeing a domestic violence relationship, and she needed an opportunity to take a breath, put her children in school and childcare, and start applying for jobs that were in her field. And long story short, that the 3 months that she had where she was filling out applications and going to life skills classes and applying for jobs landed her a position as a software engineer for Google, making 6 figures. That's one of many success stories. I know I see lots of jaws dropping, but she just needed the opportunity to put herself in a position where she could take a breath, get her kids in a position where they had roof over their head, and she could apply for a job that was in her field. And we have many more success stories than that, but that's just one example of somebody who benefited from our program and is continuing to support us now in her new independent role. So I want to move on to, I want to finish by introducing a video. I want to humanize our mission, if you will, with a story of a young man who came into our program many years ago. And I'll give you an update at the end of this video, but I'll allow you to share that video if you would, please.
I never knew someone that I never knew could care for somebody just like me. Just because I'm young, some people don't think I know what homelessness is about. I remember when my mom would always be crying. I would always ask her what was wrong, but she would never tell me. But I just knew I could feel the pain. My mom told me that we got accepted into Sybil Smith Family Village. I didn't even know what that was. All I knew was that we weren't sleeping in the car anymore. I'm thankful for Sybil Smith Family Village because I actually get to sleep in a bed. I get to make new friends. And because I also get to spend time with my mom and cook and eat meals with her. Hey, now I'm happy. because my mom found a new job that she likes. And what I'm really hoping is that we can move into a new apartment soon.
I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can.
Thank you for giving me and my mom a second chance.
So I'm going to close with a quick update about that young man in that video. Again, I just wanted to kind of humanize, put a face and a name to what we do. That young man in the video, his name is Tyreek. He is no longer a young boy anymore. He's actually 19 years old. He went to school on a football scholarship, and now coaches a team in the youth football league that he grew up playing in. And his mom has been our marketing director for the Dumas Wesley Community Center going on 16 years and is literally the spokesperson for the Dumas Wesley Community Center and a graduate of our programs. So I want to say thank you to those of you on this call. Thank you for changing the lives of women and children in our community, just like Tyreek and Joni, who are on our staff and doing well. And I appreciate your support. Excited to hear from you guys in the breakout room.
Thank you so much, Kate, for sharing the wonderful work you're a part of at Dumas Wesley Community Center. Now let us move on to our second National Mission Institution speaker. She has been the Executive Director of Emma Norton Services in St. Paul, Minnesota since 2014, with over 20 years of experience working in social services and 15 years serving those experiencing homelessness. We welcome Tanya Brownlow to share with us today about the amazing work happening at Emma Norton Services. Over to you, Tanya.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really pleased to be talking to all of you about Emma Norton Services. If you don't mind jumping to the next slide. Emma Norton has been around for over 100 years. We were started in 1917 by a United Methodist woman named Emma Norton. Our mission today is to provide transformational housing and growth for women and families on their journey of recovery. We talk a lot about recovery because every person in our programs, every adult either has a disabling condition or one of their children has a disabling condition. Most are a mental health diagnosis, chemical dependency, or some other kind of chronic health concern. And what we really focus on, similar to United Women in Faith values, is being bold and going out there and trying to do more and more on behalf of those that we serve. Next slide, please. This is a representation. It's called a theory of change, and it really explains how we approach the work that we do. I will start by just saying it starts on the left-hand side. And as you can see from the grayed circles, we serve both individuals and families, and we serve them in a variety of housing programs that I'll get into later. Our tagline is all are welcome. And really that speaks to the fact that our model, which is more about permanent supportive housing than transitional housing, focuses on making sure we have the least barriers possible. Again, the population that we're serving has a lot of needs already, and we just want to make sure that they have a place to live and the ability to get into our programs. So we do what's called housing first and harm reduction. The next section is really just, again, talking about how we do offer individualized services. It really, the overview is that those lines represent each person's individualized goals and life journey. And the tagline is we advocate for each client to achieve their unique goals. We employ case managers, a lot of youth staff to work with our children in our family program, peer support specialists. And so each client has the opportunity to set their own goals. And we know that life's journey isn't always a linear line. All of us have experienced the ups and downs of what it means to go through this place on earth. The next section is really what our key mission is. We really want to build for people stability, self-acceptance, and empowerment. What we know with people that we have served, and we know that they've experienced a lot of trauma, building those inner skills for them and helping them to overcome some of the shame and guilt they may feel from how they have also been treated in society, as well as maybe behaviors they've done in the past. We want them to build a good view of themselves and the internal capacity, so that when they move on from our programs, they have what they need to go out into the world and continue to succeed. And really, the last of it is really about wholeness and healing. What we are looking to do is create more people who have recovered and healed in this world. And the tagline is "Dignity creates transformation," because that's what we feel like in our mission statement. That's the transformational part of our housing. So if you don't mind going to the next slide. So our three main housing programs right now are Emma Norton Residence, Emma's Place, and our scattered site housing. And I'll go over each of those. And then I'll also talk about a new building that we have coming online that's going to replace our Emma Norton Residence. All in all, within all of our programs at any one time, we're serving about 250 people a night. I would say we serve between 350 and 400 people in a year. Next slide. So Emma Norton Residence was built in 1967 for the express purposes of being a housing opportunity. But as many of you know, back in 1967, we weren't serving homeless women. We were serving women that needed a place to live because society didn't accept the fact that women could live on their own, which is amazing to us. But we know that a lot of you have lived through that. So it was built more as a dormitory style housing. And in 1980, when homelessness became evident in our community, our local county, Ramsey County, approached Emma Norton to say, would we start to provide shelter services for women in need? So that's really what started us providing homeless services to folks. And we've been doing that ever since in this building. So we currently provide, again, shared housing, shared bathrooms, shared kitchens. We do all the cooking and meal service for women who are here because we have a commercial kitchen, so they can't cook on their own. As I said before, we do on-site case management. We also have peer services, and we can serve up to 50 people living in this building. This building has been the cornerstone of what Emma Norton has been. And although we are sad to see it going, we know that when we get to our new opportunity, Restoring Waters, it's going to be a better fit for those that we serve. So next slide. The next place I'm going to tell you about is our family location. So in this model, it's a little bit different. This was built around 2000. We've done some extensive renovations of that property up there. But each family that lives there, there's 13, they have their own individual townhome, where again, they're able to do their own cooking. It's Section 8 funded, so the family pays 30% of their income towards their rent. And then the housing entity pays the other remaining. At any one time, it's also, again, the adult has to have a disabling condition or one of the children in the family. It's all designed for single parent households with 3 or more children. The average for each townhome is 5 children. So at any one time, we're serving 65 to 80 kids on about 2 acres of land. So in that program, we have invested in some intensive services for our youth, which if you could go to the next slide. We focus on teaching kids around social emotional learning, because again, those are skills that everybody needs to know to succeed in adulthood. And then we put a lot of emphasis also on the teens that we've served this year. We have a couple of groups that really focus on cultural empowerment and youth development. And so that is a big component of that programming. Next slide. The other main program that we have right now is what we call scattered site housing. One thing that became obvious to us, and it's a model that's available in Minnesota, is that it takes a long time to build new buildings and create new programs. But there is ways to leverage a rental subsidy here in the cities called housing support. And so what it means is that we can meet with people who meet the qualifications of that program and then provide housing navigation services. So we go out and work to introduce them to landlords that own rental properties throughout the city. we help the tenant get through the tenant screening process, they can move into their own individual apartment. We manage the housing subsidy that pays for the apartment. We're also available to continue bringing case management services to their homes. And then if there's also any conflictual things between the tenant and the landlord, we're there to do some of that conflict mediation. So making sure that tenants are following the rules of their lease, but also landlords are following the rules and responsibilities to be a good landlord as well. So that has been one of our biggest expansions. And that program right now is serving about 50 people in it throughout the city. So next slide. So one of the things that we really have dug into here at Emma Norton is really understanding that when homelessness started back in the 1980s, many of us thought it was going to be a temporary crisis in our world. We are now 40 plus years into it. And what we've learned is that homelessness creates a lot of trauma within people and also within our general world, especially after coming out of the pandemic. 70% of adults in the United States have experienced a primary trauma and 33% of youth. And what we know is also that 100% of our staff experience what they call secondary trauma every day. And that's listening to some of the stories of what people have encountered in their past. So why we think that's important is because what we want to do is get our physical properties to support people who have gone through trauma. What we've learned through brain development is that when you walk into a space, your mind and brain quickly sends you signals about whether you're safe, whether you are welcomed, and how it makes you feel. And all of that contributes to the recovery process. So if you don't mind jumping to the next slide. So we are developing a new building, as I said, to replace Emma Norton residence. That's going to be a better fit for the needs of the people who are living here now. But in designing that building, we took these 6 trauma-informed care principles and added that into the architectural decisions that we made around the building. And we weave this into lots of different ways that we offer programming and other things to the people that we serve, because we are trying to undo the harmful effects of trauma. So if you don't mind going to the next slide. So this is our new building that's about to come online. It's called Restoring Waters. It, like I said, is being built right now and will open in April of 2024. We're very excited because here at Emma Norton, it will give us it will still be our organizational headquarters and give us lots of room to grow and do more services related to homeless services. But it's also, as I said, going to be better tailored to fit the needs of people who are experiencing homelessness in our communities. If you can just jump to the next slide, some of the things you'll see in this, we'll be able to expand from 60 total unit, or from 50 that we serve now to 60 units. And instead of that being shared living or dormitory style, people will have their own dedicated apartments where they can do their own cooking, but they'll also have spaces within the building to be in community. So we have things like an art therapy room planned, a gardening room, a rooftop garden. We'll also introduce a new mental health care model, which is an alternative to the emergency rooms, but where people experiencing mental health symptoms can get more care when they're not in need of a hospitalization. So again, if you would jump to the next slide. So again, you'll just see some of the images from that, and you can see how the spaces are really light and bright. They bring in a lot of natural healing elements because people have discovered through, again, brain and research that being out in nature does a lot to restore somebody's feelings of calmness and helps them work through past issues. Next slide. And really what I want to point out about this building, I think we're going to hear from a woman named Shannon. When we start the video, it won't be her, you'll hear her voice speaking, but then eventually you'll see her on the screen. So please start.
At 53, I found myself homeless for the first time ever in my life. I do have a mental health diagnosis. I suffered with PTSD and major depression. I was diagnosed as a teenager. Emma Norton's came into my life through a social worker. I was in the hospital And she made the call and said to me, Shannon, you're not going to be on the street. I got a place for you. 6 months later, I am balanced, I have friends, I have a safe community, and the first time in my adult life, I feel like I have opportunity towards real independence. So what I want to say is about the new place, there's going to be so many more opportunities to foster that healing that creativity brings to women who have suffered trauma. It helps with focus, it helps with concentration, it gives you a purpose, it gives you a meaning. I was so excited to find out that there's going to be a garden, a rooftop garden.
We had a little glitch with the video, but that's okay, we'll go on. But Shannon was a great proponent of the new building, and she's very excited for it to open. And I want to talk a little bit again today about how this project wouldn't be possible without the support of United Women in Faith and with our local Methodist partners. Our government funding provided a lot of the cost for the nuts and bolts of building the building. But however, we have our own capital campaign to again build out the office space for Emma Norton, as well as we had to put money in to even save the rooftop space. So we were able to do that through these capital campaign dollars that we've been raising. What really kicked off our campaign is that the current building that we're in, as many of you may have known, was owned by United Women in Faith. We were able to garner a deal between a local buyer in our community and the national office. And then both contributed into our campaign to help us raise that money. If you don't mind going to the next slide. And then one of the things that we've really been doing, you can see an overview here. Right now, we've raised $2.7 million out of the 3.75. A lot of those have come from our foundations, our local foundations, but a large part of it is coming from our local community. We have a goal of raising $1 million from our Minnesota Methodists, and as to date, they're above, I think now closer to probably about $450, almost $500,000 of that goal. If you go to the next slide, this will just show you an overview of some of the church partners we've had in our community that have really stepped up, as well as some of our United Women in Faith chapters. And I know they're out there actively every day spreading the news about our campaign and really helping us make our goals. So we want to say thank you for being so supportive of people in need and experiencing homelessness in our communities. And we're really excited going forward into the future to do more and more. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. We are grateful to learn so much about Emma Norton Services and the impact of its mission. Our final speaker is the president and CEO since 2005 of Neighborhood Services Organization in Oklahoma City. Stacy Ninnis has received many accolades for her commitment to and accomplishments on behalf of Neighborhood Services Org. These include, but are certainly not limited to, induction into the Oklahoma Journal Record Circle of Distinction in recognition of being chosen 3 consecutive years as one of their statewide 50 women making a difference. Let me pass it along to the president and CEO of Neighborhood Services Org, Stacy Ninnis.
I need to unmute myself. Thank you, David. I am so excited to be here on the call today to share just a little bit about Neighborhood Services Organization, Oklahoma's only national mission institution. It was founded by the Deaconesses in 1920, and we provide so many wonderful services that I am excited to share with you today. And I just want to do a quick shout out to all my Oklahoma friends on the call. I saw a couple of you in the chat. So Kathy and Kelly, I'm so thankful that I saw you there. So any of you that I missed, thanks for supporting. NSO has always strived to work within and for our community as a partner and as an advocate. I hope that you will all enjoy NSO's history video that's provided for you in the chat. The video showcases NSO's rich history in Oklahoma and how we've helped shape our community and how we have become the premier social service agency that we are today. Today, NSO's mission is to transform lives and to encourage independence through safe homes, dental care, and nutrition. NSO's housing initiatives include our Martha's House, our Gatewood, our Carolyn Williams Center, or CWC as we like to call it, and we will talk about all of those today. If you want to learn about all of our programs and services that NSO provides, please see NSO's 2022 impact video that's also provided for you in the chat. Our city, Oklahoma City, is experiencing a housing crisis. Just as was announced at the beginning of the call, affordable housing is not accessible to the most vulnerable citizens, especially Oklahoma City's women and children. This is why NSO's housing programs are critical. We fill the gaps of this crisis, providing transitional housing. Of the 218 transitional housing program beds in Oklahoma City, NSO provides 53, or 24% of all transitional housing beds in our community. NSO's Martha's House provides 7 fully furnished apartment homes for unhoused pregnant and parenting mothers with children. Housing and support is provided for 2 years, offering a literal lifeline for families that are escaping domestic violence, eviction, and drugs, or just working through a prison diversion program so they can be reunited with their children. These mothers attend weekly life skills classes and receive regular, personalized case management to ensure that they have the tools that they need to be successful once they graduate our 2-year program. The need for this program is tremendous. Today, NSO has 59 moms and 150 children on our waiting list, just ready to be called. NSO's Gatewood program is also a 2-year transitional living program that provides a fully furnished apartment for our unhoused moms who are either pregnant or caring for a child under the age of 5. Many of these women are escaping the same situations as our moms at Martha's House. Today, NSO has 19 moms and 6 unborn babies on our waiting list. I would like to share Angel and Lily's story with you. Before NSO, Angel was homeless, pregnant, and living in her car. Her car, not a house, was the only shelter she could rely on. As Angel shares in her video, NSO came and scooped me up. Today, Angel and her gorgeous daughter, Lily, don't spend their days wondering where they're going to park their car at night so they can sleep safely. Instead, Angel is focused on her young family's future. Angel and her daughter have a safe, stable home at NSO. And what's more is Angel is surrounded by supportive services and a family. She needs to change not only her life, but her daughter's. I hope that you'll enjoy Angel's video.
I was homeless. I was staying in my car. And that's where NSO came in and scooped me up pretty much and said, here's a home. Get back on your feet. They give people like a home. So it really helps moms get to where they need to be. There's people that need to know, hey, we are here, we can help you. You know what I mean? Because I honestly was like, they can't be for real, but they are for real. Yeah.
I always say our clients tell the story the absolute best. And so that was Angel and Lily's. And we also have our Carolyn Williams Center, or CWC as we like to call it, which is a 2-year transitional living program that provides 17 beds in a dorm-style living facility. These young men have either that are unhoused have either aged out of foster care or who are living on the streets. It isn't uncommon for young men to be brought to our door on their 18th birthday when they've officially aged out of the Oklahoma foster care system. This program was the first 24-hour supervised transitional program of its kind, not only in the state of Oklahoma, but in our entire region. Pictured on the screen is Carlos, one of our wonderful current residents at the Carolyn Williams Center, and Carlos recently shared his story with NSO. Carlos's life had been a struggle since birth. As a baby, he moved from Tulsa to Virginia. His childhood was rocky as he was in and out of foster care his whole life. He would move from one foster care home to the next. He never stayed in one place for too long. But when Carlos aged out of foster care at age 18, he didn't have the skills, support, or resources that he needed to build his own life. He was at risk of being homeless, but thankfully, Carlos was referred to NSO's Carolyn Williams Center. NSO welcomed Carlos with open arms. Carlos moved into a safe, stable home at our Carolyn Williams Center and settled into the grit and the grind of learning the skills most of us pick up during childhood. He learned how to be a solid employee, care for his home, and build a strong relationship. Carlos is now 21, and when he thinks about the tremendous opportunity he's been given, he's just thankful. He says, being at the Carolyn Williams Center is a good opportunity for me to plan for my future and for that extra time. I am grateful. I hope you'll enjoy Carlos's video.
The moment I was born up until I was 6 years old, I was in foster care, and that really wasn't, like the best environment compared to where I would be if I was on my own. I definitely got my chance to be in school. That opportunity came from here. I would say that if you give a donation, you are helping many people that are trying to transition their lives into hitting the ground running, or people who've had struggles in their life that like need a little fallback, a break, build themselves back up, and those donations they make it happen. The moment I was
Annually, NSO's programs serve an extraordinary amount of Oklahomans, providing more than 247,000 units of service in 2022. This is an incredible 40% increase from 2021. This is why it's so important to NSO that we can share our ministry with you today. Our board and our staff believe that everyone deserves a safe place that they can call home, a pain-free smile, and an opportunity to access proper nutrition. And I'm confident that after today, you will all agree. Please learn more about our ministry by logging on to our Facebook, to our website at nsookc.org. The link is also provided for you in the chat. The need for our services at NSO just continues to grow. Last year, NSO received more than 82,000 phone calls from unhoused mothers, young men who were living on the streets, our partner agencies, people in desperate need of housing, dental care, and our WIC services, women, infants, and children. All of them just looking to NSO for help and for hope. Thank you all for supporting the United Women in Faith through your generous mission giving. National mission institutions like NSO can make a huge impact on the communities that we serve because you all generously give. And I want to close by sharing the story of Tamara, who made her own video. So please remember, this is her own cell phone video to say thank you, because your giving, she was able to reunite with her 4-year-old son, August, and move into her own home. I hope you enjoy, and thank you again for generously giving to the United Women in Faith so we can all provide shelters of hope.
Hi there, I'm Tamara Reed, and I'm just doing this video to say how very, very grateful I am for this lovely and beautifully decorated apartment, and for just the kindness. I'm so grateful for your help and all that was put into these apartments, because for this, it gave me an opportunity to get my son back. This is Augie. And say hi and say thank you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you all for giving. And also, I felt to say an additional video from one of our clients will also be in the chat. So thank you so much.
A big thanks to Stacy Ninnis, and just thank you for sharing the amazing work you're doing, bringing families together, helping youth. Thank you for the work that you're doing in Oklahoma City. And thanks to Tanya and to Kate also for your presentations. You are being Christ to all those that you work with, and those in your midst day after day. We appreciate you. And a thank you to everyone who is joining us today. I know I was blessed, and I hope you were too. Yeah, as United Women in Faith, we believe that love in action can change the world. These stories describe just some of the ways we support our nearly 90 community centers, shelters, and colleges, putting millions of dollars in action for women, children, and youth around the globe each year. Nearly half of the national mission institutions engage in some sort of housing-related programs, impacting lives of over 6,600 individuals in 2022 alone. All the programs you heard about today are supported by grants from the National Office of United Women in Faith, made possible by your financial gifts. Gifts from individuals of faith like you make this work possible. To make your gift support, to support this work today, please text ACTION at 20503. And our next Voices from the Field will be December 5th at 7:30 Eastern Time. So get out your calendars or write yourself a note so you won't miss it. December 5th, our home missioners will lead us. Can't wait to see you there.
Hello, I am Kenny Roberts, and so happy to be joining you as your Q&A moderator for today's event. Thank you for the questions that were put in the chat in the Q&A box, in addition to the direct messages that came to me. We're going to try to get to all of the questions, but we may not. So just, hopefully you're able to stay with us for an additional 20 minutes for the breakout sessions. Okay, so the COVID pandemic changed all of our lives dramatically. Can you say a bit about the impact COVID has had on your clients and your programming? It'd be great to start with you, Kate.
Sure. Yeah, so COVID has really brought a lot of needs to the surface. I'm sure those of you on this call can share in that same sentiment. For us specifically in transitional housing, we saw that pre-COVID, the individuals we served had 1 in 4 of the individuals we served had a reported mental illness. Post-COVID, it's 3 out of 4. Same likewise with domestic violence victims. Pre-COVID, about 25% of our participants were fleeing domestic violence relationships. And today, as we speak, we are over 80% of our participants are fleeing domestic violence relationships. And so for us, the way we've been doing this for many years and continue to do is to evolve with the needs in the community, right? So one of the things we put in place is a domestic violence lethality scale, which allows us on the intake side to see what the likelihood of recurrence for an offense would be, and then being able to get those tools and trauma workshops and therapy in place for those residents. And if there is a safety issue, then we place that person in the care of a true domestic violence shelter that does not have a disclosed location. And then on the mental illness side, we actually ended up partnering with 2 of our mental health service providers in the community, where we are in a contract with them. And we are able to make an immediate call and say, we've got a resident here that is in a mental health crisis, and they are seen, if not the same day, within 24 hours. Whereas they don't have to go through the traditional, process to get to be seen by a mental health provider. So we've really built some pretty sturdy partnerships in the community, and then also have really built in some key screening tools to allow us to identify those individuals that have mental illness and are fleeing domestic violence post-COVID.
Thank you, Kate. And Stacy, would you be also able to just share really quickly some of the dramatic changes that have happened due to COVID?
As it relates to housing, I think the biggest COVID-related issue that we've had with our transitional living, obviously, as I mentioned, they are a 2-year program. And with affordable housing being so limited in our city, we've had to sometimes increase average length of stay just because landlords aren't taking vouchers. Landlords are not, they're evicting people. And so it's just been a lot of our waiting list for Section 8 housing here in Oklahoma City was 5 years. And so we really just had a lot of problems finding permanent housing once they've graduated our program. So that was a huge COVID related issue. We had lots of CARES dollars that came through here. So we were able to help pay a lot of first month's rents. But now that funds have dried up, we are now in a back of a difficult situation again, where we are really working with funders. Had a meeting with a funder yesterday to try to figure out how to navigate our landlord crisis, our affordable housing crisis here in Oklahoma City. So NSO is definitely trying to take the lead on that and trying to figure out how we can, once we work with the mom and their kids, how we can transition them from a transitional opportunity to a permanent housing opportunity.
Thank you so much for that. And Tanya, we just have a minute to also hear about how it is also affected.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Stacy said. I mean, I think what we see is that since a lot of rental subsidies and things have ended, and I know here in Minnesota, we had a moratorium that people couldn't be asked to leave their housing due to landlords. There was an eviction moratorium, and after that ended, we've seen numbers really rise of families that have been evicted since that time. I would say also unique to the Twin Cities here, they did see a rise, and I think people experiencing unsheltered homelessness, so not even getting into shelters, but living outside. I think in our county alone, there was a 67%. So, when we drive around through our city here, we see a lot of tent pop-up cities. And that, again, as I said in my speech, when we talk about trauma and what people experience, I think when you live in a community, but it's perfectly acceptable for you to live in a tent on the side of a highway, it's just not acceptable. And I think until we come to agreement that as a community that's not acceptable, we're going to continue to see people experiencing homelessness and trauma and take a long time for that recovery to happen in our world.
Thank you so much, Tanya. I hope everyone is able to stay on and hold on to your questions for the breakout sessions.
Good afternoon. I'm Betty Gittens, and thank you so much for joining us today. We especially want to thank our guests, Tanya Barlow of Norton Services, Kate Carver of Dumas Wesley Community Center, Stacy Ninnis of Neighborhood Services Organization, and the Voices planning team for this event. United Women in Faith's Giving is supporting programs that changes the lives of women and their families. This program will be available on our YouTube channel in a few days, and we invite you to share with your United Women in Faith sisters, your church community, or your community at large. Be sure to join us for our next Voices program, December 5th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We hope you enjoyed and were inspired by this afternoon's presentation. And thank you again for joining us today.